Are you shaken at all, Phil, by how, I know you said you do what you had to do and you have to bottom out, understand, but the bottom was further bottom that's ever been before in this organization. Did any of it kind of make you say, maybe this is harder than I thought it was, or maybe I have a lot more to learn than I thought I did, anything of that nature?
You know, right before we went to London, or that period of time around going to London, the trip to the West Coast, you know, Clippers, etc., game in the new year, and that subsequent period before going to London, we'd played, I can't remember if we played 60, if we played 40 games in 60-some days. Very close to, you know, playing 2.5 games, you know, I mean, a game more than every other day. And there was just a sense with this team that they were just faltering, just going down, and they couldn't survive. And our schedule was really top-loaded heavy in the front of the season. So even developing players and rehabbing players that were limited, like Carmelo and Amari, etc., you know, was just an uphill task for us this year. And so all those things were working against us, and I just realized that, you know, it's the right time now is to do what we think is the right thing to do. Our season is, you know, we had a 19-game losing streak. Now's the time to make this move and, you know, live with the consequences. And the consequences I knew were going to be difficult, but it's you know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you finish with 30 wins or 17 wins in this situation. And what matters is that you develop a team, and you develop an attitude and an atmosphere where players want to play and they want to give an effort, and you can teach them, and you can move forward. And in doing so, I think, you know, it gave us a positive feeling about the season. And now we can, you know, put that face forward as we go ahead. And we have some money to work with. We have a draft pick, and that's big news for us.
Phil, you talked about teams turning around quickly. Your Bulls 17 years ago, they've won 4 playoff series since then. It's not always that easy.
No.
And you know, your friend, you know, David Busher, he drafted Patrick, but it wasn't really until '92 when he started to be a legitimate contender. Would you be okay if you were the one who helped kind of lay the foundation, and maybe you're not here 5, 6, 7 years from now, right? Would that be okay for you, your legacy, and the job that you've done?
Yes. In one short sentence, exclamation point, yes. I'm fine with that.
And Phil, just to that end, just jumping off of what you said about Carmelo and earlier about the fans, I'm just wondering if you think there's an understanding throughout the organization, say from the top down, that this process can and maybe should take longer than it historically has been attempted here, with a lot of quick fixes through the years.
What happens to organizations, and I was fortunate to sit with one of my owners in the past years, and we talked about you know, a lot of teams that, you know, have made playoffs for 15 years in a row, and that this is something that's touted on TV. And yet you see at the end of their, you know, maybe their run where they had a pretty good run at the, you know, 13th, 14th, 15th year in a row, they're like finishing 7th or 8th. And they just get locked into that level. They don't have a chance to grow. They've tried to build a team. They've got long-term contracts. They have, you know, a draft pick that's going to, you know, maybe be a okay player, but it's not going to move a franchise ahead. The only way you really do this is to try and follow this type of pattern. Well, that gave me an understanding of, you know, something I thought could work here at one point in the season, that, okay, it's going to have to be something that we have to do this dramatic, and we have to move this thing in a large step, and so this is the process I chose to take. And I think, you know, rightly so. I think it's the right way to do it. I watched the Band-Aid approach for the years that have gone through with a number of teams, and I'm not always saying that the, you know, free agency always changes things up, but it's a chance and it's an opportunity. And this is, you know, this is a speculative sport. You're betting on, you know, hopefully someone who's going to have a long-term effect on a team when you do pick up a draft pick like this. You want someone to move that franchise forward.
Do you ever actually watch the lottery, or, I mean, you're usually busy that time of year. What do you think of the whole process?
Well, I watched Dave pull out or be chosen and his reaction. Patrick Ewing. I pulled off the road on the way to California in '99 and watched Jerry Krause in the draft that got him their draft pick #1 in '99. I've watched a number of draft picks in situations that have astounded me, to be honest with you. Orlando had a 1% chance of getting the first draft pick in '92 when they got Chris Webber. Things like that happen that are unique, and so it's a fascinating process. I don't want to be there and do it. I submit my colleagues to go and sit in that place and watch it go down because I know it's an interesting aspect. My fiance Jeannie went to Secaucus and did the draft. They started out at 10th. They ended up at 10th. We got Andrew Bynum, which is probably second best pick in that draft, maybe the third. So I've seen all kinds of drafts that have come down and the spectacular around it. What I didn't like was watching the NHL draft last Saturday. I thought that was arduous and difficult to watch as they open up these cards and there's only one that was going to change. How many guys watched that? It was not a good PR attempt. I think the NBA has put some thought in it. It's had so many discussions over the past that it's really interesting to hear all of the discussions. Steve's been part of it, and so we'll submit ourselves to that and go, and I think we'll hope for the best.
Phil, when you look at, I remember before you were running the team, you had comments about Carmelo and Amari, and I think from the outside looking in, a lot of people initially saw that and said two-star scores, but maybe there's some redundancies there in terms of where they operate from or the kind of scoring role they play, the mid-range game, all sorts of things. I guess two questions. How important is it to find someone that complements Carmelo's skill, either in free agency or the draft? And also, I think most people would say the guys that are remaining on this roster aren't really known for defense. How big of a priority is that for you as you look forward this summer?
I think it's easy to make grandiose statements that cover a lot of things, but I will say this: that the Golden State Warriors, their difference this year is their defense. Atlanta, their difference is their defense this year. Their offense is very effective, etc. But those two teams move forward by a defensive adjustment and a defensive reality, team defensive reality that match their personnel. That's the area that we want to get good at, and the reason why I've mentioned that bigs are a priority for us in the draft is simply that I think that a defense has to be anchored, by stopping the ball and by having an intimidating force in the lane. But that's not the end of it. The other part of it is the activity part of it, the help aspect, the team play, all centers around defense. And until players really get that in their mind that this is where we play as a team, sometimes it's difficult to get them to think about it in the right way. Fortunately, I have a coach that's built that way. His associate, Kurt Rambis, is built that way. Brian Keefe is built that way. Our coaching staff understands this entirely. So we know the defense is going to be a major issue for us. That Carmelo has been kind of a tweener is something we'll accommodate, and our whole aspect of how we draft and how our agencies come in incorporates this, because we're trying to put people together like a jigsaw puzzle that fits right. So trust me, we'll be working really hard on that aspect of it.
So you said that
I think I should take a break now, Jonathan. Is that it? And say, wait, one more question.
No, you
Who
said
hasn't
one more
asked a
question.
question? You
You
haven't
said
asked
that,
a question yet. Come on.
You said that next year you don't expect a challenge. But having said that, can fans expect this team to contend for a playoff spot if you make the right moves, the right draft?
Well, I hope so, but I hope it's not at the extent of we just made a playoffs and we're like 35 what would we be, 47 or something to make a playoff? I want to see us have a winning record. I want to see us win, you know, and that's a big jump to go from where we're at to having a winning record. You know, the East has been, you know, really struggling with the last, you know, 7, 8 teams actually, and you know, finding a way to consistently find winners in our conference. So, you know, that might not guarantee you a position, but you know, I think Phoenix can. I don't know if Phoenix ended up over 500. Did they end up over 500 this year?
They were slightly under 500.
They went under at the end. And they were.
I thought they were, because I think there was the only other team in the West that had a winning record that didn't make it was Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I think those teams, you know, they have to feel like, okay, we didn't make the playoffs, but we had a winning team, and that's what we're after. We're after, you know, winning. And you know, I'll never forget it. One time the Knicks made the playoffs at 40 and 42, and I mentioned something. Yeah, we made the playoffs, but we were still had a losing season. I think it was back in like you know, 78 or 77, something like that. And of course, I got hammered by the Daily News for that because, you know, it still was kind of a negative comment. But I think from a player standpoint, from a coaching standpoint, a team aspect, and even the fans, I think you want to see that we win as a priority. Yes, playoffs brings a lot of fun to FanCore, and it's, you know, what we've really built our game around, to the playoffs. So we'd like to do that.